It's about the journey and not the destination, unless of course that journey required hours of your time and then the payoff was a big fat punch in the face. That doesn't sound so great. This is how some TV shows have treated us over the years though. They suck us in with their good acting and plots and then ruin our lives by having no idea how to pay it all off, so essentially they just give up. And it's us that has to deal with the consequences, and more often than not it means we all feel like massive chumps. Just great. I'm Simon from Whatculture. This is 10 great TV shows that lost it by the end. Number 10, Fringe. Kinda like the X-Files, Fringe succeeded because of its focus on characters, relationships, and good old-fashioned storytelling. Well, sort of succeeded. It was well made, but almost always lost money for maker Fox, so that wasn't so great. When we got to the final season though, everything changed, seemingly for no reason. It shifted things to a dystopian future where the two central figures were frozen in amber from the ending of the previous season, and already you see why things hit a brick wall. As the story goes, it was the last series that was meant to serve as a finale, but then everyone involved changed their minds, so even though many of the storylines had been wrapped up, we now had to have this brand new world nonsense to get us through. Only problem was, it was so generic now you could have cried. The very last episode had some poignant moments, but ultimately you can ignore everything here entirely and still enjoy what Fringe was. And that is stupid. Number 9, The Mentalist. The reason The Mentalist was good was because lead man Patrick Jane was a former con man carny that had gone through some serious hardships, rethought his life, and then used his swami ways to join the CBI to actually try and do some good. Nothing out of the ordinary, but a solid foundation to lay your hat on. Most episodes fell into the classic detective formula as Jane would solve something while also getting sad about the serial killer known as Red John, who did murder his wife and daughter. But he used that as a motivation to do good. It was a nice balance. So why there was all of a sudden a need for Jane to catch up to and kill Red John in season 6 is anyone's guess. Getting rid of that angle meant the whole show had to change, and this meant shifting events 2 years to the future and Patrick joining the FBI. From here on out, The Mentalist was just empty. With no Red John to act as a foil, the show had no focus, and you could tell. Bumbled around from episode to episode until viewers were happy that it shut shop for good. Number 8, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Although loved by many, the last 2 seasons of Buffy aren't exactly the best. Pretty much on a downward spiral from season 3 if we're honest with ourselves. There was still the odd highlight here and there, but towards the end, we were dead in the water. With creator Joss Whedon moving on to other projects and passing responsibility on to others, the storytelling took a huge nosedive and basically became really boring. Then Buffy was killed, for a while, but when she came back from the dead, she was really annoying. By the end, Buffy felt like a fan fiction version of the show. The dialogue had faltered, the pacing was all over the place, characters had lost their charm, and all the humour had flown away to pastures new. Just to add one final blow to things, around this time, spin-off show Angel was really hitting its stride, so everyone went and watched that instead. Number 7, How I Met Your Mother. When How I Met Your Mother first began in 2005, it did feel somewhat creative and dynamic. Framed in a way that you were actually being told a story from the past, it was able to have some fun with its structure. But soon this was also the reason for its demise. Come season 9, and frankly, everyone had enough. The gimmickry had gone too far, and the final season of 24 episodes that took place over one weekend, which is balmy, even acknowledged that the show had worn out its welcome. Throw in that Ted by this point was a giant asshole, it was kinda saved somewhat by the introduction of the mother, who turned out to be everything Ted had ever wanted in a woman. But by this point, no one gave a crap anyway. Number 6, Sons of Anarchy. Too much belief was put into Sons of Anarchy creator Kurt Sutter. While the man is clearly very talented, the success of the show meant Network FX kept giving him more rope, and that rope soon resulted in the extension of running times for episodes which are way too long. Take for instance the season premiere of season 7. Going on for 74 minutes was a little much to take, but this was made worse because every episode pretty much then followed suit. You're getting too much bang for your buck, and it made the whole thing feel boring. It wasn't just this meandering that ruined the program, however. While character Jackson Teller had been a complex figure for most of the show and one we could side with, in season 7 he was just an out-and-out knob after the murder of his wife. When all was said and done, it was hard to care what did happen to him, which is not the feeling you want your audience to be left with. Number 5, Lost. Nothing screwed over its fan base more than Lost, mostly because of the sheer amount of misdirection it threw at them. Initially one of the best and most intriguing things on TV, it hurled curveball after curveball at the viewer to the point of fascination. It was like it could do no wrong. Unfortunately it could, and it soon seemed that producers didn't have a long-term plan and would kind of make it up as they went along. That wasn't true, but the fact it felt this way was not good. There were just too many questions left hanging constantly and never any answers, and that was the issue. Lost promised its viewership everything would be wrapped up. That just wasn't true at all. It got even more convoluted because previous plot points and actions all of a sudden just stopped being part of the story and ignored. And by the controversial finale, no one was going to come away feeling good about this. They say the idea was the crash survivors were actually in purgatory the whole time and had to come to terms with their lives before they could move on. But that may be lies for all we know. You can kind of just make it all up in your head. It's rubbish. Number 4, True Blood. True Blood was a huge hit, and a large reason for that was how forward-facing it was. Nakedness, violence, swearing, nuts dialogue, crazy stories. People loved it, and each series upped the ante further than the last. And then we got to season 4. Instead of being a guilty pleasure, True Blood tried to, well, I don't even know. But all of a sudden everyone was overacting, there was too much sex and casual murder which kept confusing the plot and individual characters, and it got so stupid everything started to suffer. Somehow though, the ratings didn't. Unfortunately, that was because viewers were staying tuned to see just how bad things could get, because the last season was proper weird. A mess of confusing plots, more deaths, more bad sex, awful violence, and dumb decisions. The producers even went as far as to just tell us what had happened to the central characters, as opposed to show us. Right. Cool. Number 3, Roseanne. While it's easy to forget, Roseanne was a massive hit. The most popular show in America for around a decade, people genuinely loved it. Well, until the penultimate season when the ratings tanked so much that 1997 Series 9 was announced as the last. Alas, the people behind the camera clearly had no idea how to end the thing, because the big reveal was that all the ups and downs that had happened during the final run were a fantasy. Instead, Roseanne was coping with the loss of her husband Dan, who had actually passed away at the end of season 8. So basically everything you watched before that didn't matter, and it was really depressing. Awesome. Number 2, Dexter. Dexter is one of the biggest nosedives ever. It should have finished with season 5, especially as the series before that is among some of the best TV you could possibly hope to see. That's why it was especially bad when we got to season 8 and fans would openly ask the network to just stop the show mid-run so it wouldn't be run into the ground anymore. Wasting its time on idiotic subplots for supporting characters, a load of new faces were introduced too, and the main storyline was so complicated no one understood it. There was so much to be confused about as Dexter came to a close that it's hard to explain even here, because it genuinely made no sense and didn't feel like the same show. The final episode followed suit. Dexter faked his own death, leading Hannah to raise his son in Argentina. And that is, of course, what we all wanted. Number 1, Heroes. A show that fell off the wagon so badly it even ruined the careers of some of the actors involved, Heroes was like car crash TV before the end. A large reason for this was that showrunner Tim Gring did come out and admit that seasons of the show were written on the fly. Good grief did it show. The first season caught lightning in a bottle, and everybody involved clearly panicked in the follow-up series because they didn't know how to replicate it. Deciding to introduce more characters and more powers and more conspiracies certainly didn't help, and adding to the mythology to upper up more mysteries and secrets just made the whole thing incredibly difficult to keep up with. Long-winded, tedious, and frankly boring. It was bizarre that a program about superheroes could be this dull. A one and done, no doubt. Heroes fell off a cliff. Know of any other TV shows that lost it by the end? Let us know in the comments below, and then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then go to Whatculture.com to read more articles. Follow Whatculture on Twitter at Whatculture. I am Simon from Whatculture.com, and I will chat to you again soon.
Oh, hello there. I'm billionaire philanthropist, not Bruce Wayne. And as you may have heard, we've actually started up a Whatculture comics channel. Oh, that's better. Where you can go for all the comics lists, all the comics news, and all the comics discussion. So go and subscribe to Whatculture Comics for loads of amazing comics coverage.